So last month, a grand jury in Pennsylvania issued a 884-page report that found 300 priests in 6 of 8 Pennsylvania dioceses to have sexually molested or raped at least 1,000 victims. This investigation spanned 50 years, and some of the stories you're about to hear are heartbreaking. They're disgusting, and you need to see for yourself just how impactful sexual abuse at young ages can be and why this needs to stop within the church. So let's take a look at that.
My name is Robert Corby, and I'm 83 years old.
Sean Doherty, 48 years old.
Carolyn Fortney, 37.
I grew up in a small western Pennsylvania town, Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
I grew up in Bethlehem.
Anhot, which is like right behind Steel High School, Steelton area.
I was groomed starting young.
The day I met him, I was around 18 months old.
They targeted me because I was fatherless.
I was in my diaper, and I ran out and ran right to him.
We were taught, the priests and the nuns are God.
Just think, like, the word God makes me think of him, and I just...
You're being groomed to get used to a grown man's hands, on you regularly.
So he would always have his hands on me.
When you have the priest touching you every day, that's a hard memory to have. The first thought of an erection that you have in your life is by the hands of the priest.
All of a sudden, he was gone.
Father Karchik in my 8th grade year was just up and moved with no notice, no anything. The town was devastated. Everybody loved him.
They haven't found help yet.
He abused it, and the church covered it up.
Who would have believed me? A priest in 1948 or 47 would abuse you? Would do that? Never heard of such a thing because they covered it up.
It doesn't ever go away. It has an effect on you for the rest of your life.
And I'm a survivor.
This is not a vendetta against the church. We're called survivors for a reason.
These are people that these priests ruined their lives, and they still, at 83 years old, still affects them.
I just feel like my whole life has been a lie.
Has absolutely destroyed me.
My children suffered. My wife suffered.
My dad found out, but he went crazy.
I was very unaffectionate. I couldn't show any affection with my wife.
I had no desire to have children. None, because of this.
My children I couldn't hold or hug.
I didn't feel comfortable at all. I still don't feel comfortable now in relationships.
No kids for me.
The affection I could give to her. And thanks to Father Royer, he took that away from me.
I mean, it's affected my life so much.
This is a lifelong issue with survivors.
They have to be accountable, the church, for what they did.
I've waited for a long time for this.
I think this report's gonna help people who don't have a family, because they're gonna know that there's a lot of people out there now that believe them and are behind them.
This is one of the proudest things I've ever done in my life.
I'm so happy.
Speaking about your abuse is a very important step in the healing process.
I just was always saying, they're not going to beat me.
it'll just be refreshing to not have to, I guess, pretend like I'm someone else all the time. It's very lonely, especially when it's your word against God's.
So, the first time I even saw that video, I was in tears. It was heartbreaking. To know that these kids were sexually abused in such a way that they couldn't even form normal relationships with their own children and their own family, or have an intimate relationship of their own. It just makes me so sad. And as an atheist, part of me wants to bash this as a, religious thing and say that if you don't want to get raped, don't go to church. But of course, that wouldn't solve the problem. And that's not the right approach here. We need to listen to the victims, what they say, and the Catholic Church has to be reformed, because this cannot keep happening. There have been reports coming out ever since the 80s implicating the Catholic Church in horrible sex crimes against kids. I mean, and not even just sex crimes alone. I'm talking about brutal beatings, imprisonment, slavery, psychological torment, all kinds of terrible, awful things. And when you're, like they said in the video, groomed to getting the priest or having the priest touch you every day, when you're psychologically groomed to think that that's normal behavior, when your first erection is at the hands of a priest, you're not able to have a normal relationship with your child, because as we unfortunately see all too many times in cases of violence and domestic abuse, oftentimes it was the parents themselves who were abused as children, and some psychological phenomena in the brain with childhood trauma makes a lot of victims reciprocate that in their own lives with their own kids and their own families. So if you're domestically abused, you're far more likely to be abusive towards your wife and your children later on in life. If your first erection is at the hands of a priest, you might be programmed to having some weird sexual connection between children and older people. And that's just unfortunately how humans work. We're like sponges when we're young. I mean, that one girl was 18 months old when she was taken advantage of. She said that the words God makes her think of him. That's trauma that you never get rid of. They talk about the healing process and how coming out and talking about it is an important step, which I'm sure it is. And I am thankful for them, each and every one of them, for coming forward in that video and speaking up about what they went through, because I'm sure it's not easy to talk about. But the unfortunate thing is, like some of them say in the video, it's the happiest they've ever been. Talking about this horrible abuse that they've endured throughout their entire lives is the happiest that they have ever been. Just because now people believe them and they know that they're not going to be perceived as liars or crazy or as opponents to the church. I mean, one of them even said in the video, this isn't to go after the church. This is about what happened to me. And we know that from the Vatican, which is like a nation state in and of itself, they have the ultimate control. Like the Pope is like the god of Catholicism. It's really creepy and cultish. And when you get down to it, in reality, Catholicism in modern times, in the 20th and 21st century, has become a child sex cult. That's all it is. When there was an Australian report issued in 2015 finding 7% of all priests in Catholic churches having been themselves predators. 7% of all priests were predators. You can imagine those are just the ones that got caught. Out of the 1,000 in this report that came out, you can imagine those are only the ones who came forward. That one gentleman was 83 years old. How many people die before they're 83 and go to the grave with their story? And it's just unfortunate that this keeps happening. And what do we do about it? You have to reform in some way the Catholic Church, because unfortunately you're not going to be able to just bring people to Jesus in rhetorical terms and show them that it's all bullshit. No religion has the answers. Everybody is burdened by questions that we don't know the answers to. That's why people look to religion, or some people, instead of religion, look into science and reason and facts and come to the realization eventually that we can't understand everything, and the answers that everybody wants answers, or the questions that everybody wants answers to, sometimes we're just not gonna be able to know, and you're gonna have to live with that and be okay with that. But if you're gonna believe in God and practice Christianity, and you want to be a good Christian and live like Jesus did, you don't go around molesting kids. You certainly don't cover it up, as the Catholic Church has done repeatedly in many countries. I have a short list of them here, and when I say short, I of course mean that ironically. Let's see. So, in the UK, Ireland, US, Canada, Philippines, Belgium, France, Germany, and Australia, there have been huge sexual abuse allegations and cases that have gone on against the churches. And unfortunately, in almost all of them, you don't see any arrests made. You don't see the cops coming for these motherfuckers. You don't see anything being done outside of the church itself. They just move them from parish to parish, or diocese to diocese, and nobody knows what happens to them or why they leave and who this new priest is and why he's there and what his past is, because the church does their best to cover it up, deny the allegations, shame the victims into not coming forward, and try to groom them psychologically to think that this abuse was normal and this is what is just the thing that kids do with priests. And it's just made me sick, and I felt like I had to share their stories and just, elaborate a little bit on the Pennsylvania report. There's a lot of blowback coming out now, thankfully, as more people learn about this and more people get angry like I am. More stuff will be done, but action won't be taken until people take action. So if you're in the Catholic Church, I'm not calling for you to quit the church. If you want to reform it, you need to look into the leaders. You need to look into your diocese. You need to look into how people are being treated, how they are acting around children. You need to be vigilant. You need to talk to other people, and you need to report anything you hear to the police, not within the church. Don't keep this a secret. Don't be ashamed to come forward if this has been done to you. People will understand, and people will not judge you or blame you. So, with all that being said, I think this is where I'm going to leave this story. So if you enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, anything you can do to help me out. I'd really appreciate it. I put a lot of research and work into these videos, so it would mean a lot just to get some feedback back from you guys. So, like I said, subscribe or like this page, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.